Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the March 2nd meeting of the Howard County Delegation. With us this morning, we are very honored to have Congressman John Sarbanes, who has a few minutes to give us an update on all the things going on in Washington, of which there are quite a lot. So we will get right to it. And Congressman Sarbanes, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. Let me start by just acknowledging the good work that the delegation's doing in Annapolis. I know you've got a very active session addressing many issues, and I think we'll address them in a positive, productive way. Not something I can claim every day when it comes to what's happening in Washington. So sometimes you look over there and you're a little bit jealous of the good progress that Maryland's able to make through its General Assembly. I also want to just commend your leadership in terms of Howard County, which continues to be a very strong leader in so many spaces, obviously tackling very difficult issues over the last couple of years, trying to get us to that new normal that we're gonna try to create and establish in our state and across the country. Howard County can certainly be a leader, and your role in that as a delegation is very important. As you know, about half of the federal funding that was coming to Howard County through the American Rescue Plan did arrive in June, and a good portion of that has been committed to some very important priorities. So I commend the county executive and the council working collaboratively with you all to think about where those investments can be made for that, and that effort will continue. There's some other federal connections to things that are happening in Howard County that we can talk about along the way. But again, just want to thank you for your leadership there as a delegation. In terms of what's happening in Washington, of course, we got an update directly from the president last night in the State of the Union speech. I think the president balanced well, pointing out some of the major achievements of his administration over these first 14, 15 months, including the American Rescue Plan, which I just referenced, which helped the country get through the darkest days of the pandemic. But also things like the infrastructure investment bill, the bipartisan bill that we were able to pass and get to his desk in terms of creating jobs, manufacturing things here in the United States of America. So pointing to some very important achievements on the one hand, but acknowledging that there's still many families out there, including in Maryland, that feel pinched by inflation and some of these economic challenges that we're facing, and that we've got to address that as well. So sort of combining some themes there, but looking the camera in the eyes he did last night, declaring that you can't bet against the American people. I think that's always true. Ours is the one major economy in the world that's actually grown during this period of time, as opposed to having shrunk, which is a testament to American workers and American productivity. So there was that element of the speech. Obviously, the situation in Ukraine is one that develops by the hour. No question that the coalition that's now standing against Putin and his aggression and trying to support the Ukrainian people is unprecedented in its scope and sort of the connective tissue that's been built around these diplomatic and economic sanctions that have been brought to bear. And much of that, I think, is credited to the president and his administration's leadership. So I think it's very fair for him to lift that up as a significant achievement in this moment. We're going to obviously have to keep an eye on what's happening there and continue to bring to bear some very significant consequences and costs for Putin and Russia. On the issue of democracy, fighting for democracy and pushing back against authoritarian regimes like we see out of Russia, that's a long-term project, and it's broader than just answering Russia's recklessness recently. It's something that I've been very committed to. Unfortunately, about 6 weeks ago, we were not able to get the vote in the Senate we had been seeking on the Freedom to Vote Act, which would have put in place broad national standards, supported, I must say, by Republicans, Democrats, and independents when it comes to accessing the ballot box in this country, as well as components that would fight back against the corruption in Washington that people see, which is that money has way too much influence over how policy gets made. We're going to keep pushing on that front because I think fundamentally people just want to know that they can get to the ballot box without running an obstacle course. And we don't want to have two Americas. We don't want to have one America where it's easy and straightforward to register and cast your vote and make sure that it's counted, and another America where that's hard to do. That's the risk here. We want to put really good, strong baseline standards in, again, that serve all people of all political parties in a constructive way. So we'll definitely keep at that. We continue the efforts to focus in on what happened on January 6th. The January 6th Commission has proceeded forward with its work. I think, again, following the evidence wherever it leads, not being deterred. And that's a very, very important, I think, service to our country to make sure we have an accurate picture of what happened on that day and the days leading up to it. So that effort will continue. Obviously, we have leadership from within the Maryland delegation with people like Congressman Raskin and others who've been very much involved in that. So that's what's happening in that space. On the appropriations front, as you may know, we always seem to be wrangling over getting our budget passed, and that's happened again this year. We have a March 11th deadline on the continuing resolution that we have in place now. That will be expiring then. And so we're trying to get the budget solved and agreement broadly in place before March 11th. It seems like we're on track to do that. So hopefully that will happen. Another dimension which you know and should keep in mind as we move forward, and we expect to get requests coming from the community, is these community project funding opportunities. They used to be called earmarks. They have a lot of new restrictions and guidelines in place, but it does allow members of Congress to respond to requests for resources and investments at the community level. And so we expect to continue to be able to do that, hopefully as part of the appropriations process going forward. I mentioned the infrastructure bill that we did get passed. That means a lot to Maryland for sure. Just looking at some of the numbers I've got here, $800 million in highway funding coming into the state through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, $31 million for airport improvements, $400 million for bridge repairs, $140 million for water infrastructure improvements. There's going to be a whole process beyond any formula dollars that come in. There's going to be a whole process of competitive grants and sort of 25 different baskets of opportunity. Maryland will be applying for those, but also there will be local government opportunities to apply for some of those funds for projects in those jurisdictions. So Howard County and others will be in a position to take advantage of that. I referenced the American Rescue Plan. That money continues to flow. I talked about what it meant for Howard County. And again, you know, the dynamic here is when we go fight for these dollars at the federal level that we know will find their way to state and local governments, we have to have confidence that those dollars will be spent well, that there's accountability in place. Howard County is at the top of the list when you think of jurisdictions that are able to demonstrate wise investment and also bring those accountability measures in place. And so continue to have expectation that those investments can help in places like Howard County and Maryland. Postal reform, we finally got passed in the House. We expect it to pass in the Senate in the coming days and get to the president's desk. We know the challenges that the U.S. Postal Service has been facing, broadly speaking, for years now in terms of how it's funded and what its solvency looks like, as well as the challenges that it faced during the height of the pandemic. And I would say some bad business decisions or service decisions that were made at high levels along the way. This postal reform really addresses the solvency issues in ways that should get the Postal Service back on some strong footing. So that's important we had a hearing just recently, the Oversight Committee that I serve on with Congressman Infume. Dutch Ruppersberger was part of it as well. We did it downtown to highlight some of the problems we've seen in Maryland and in the Baltimore area in particular in terms of delivery of mail. So we continue to bring a bright light to that. We shine a bright light on it to make sure that the Postal Service is adhering to the standards the American people have come to expect over its decades-long history, centuries-long history, really. So we'll continue to focus on that. Last thing I'll just mention is the America Competes Act, which we passed in the House. Again, there's a Senate companion. It's a slightly different bill. There'll be a conference to try to reconcile differences there. But that's going to be very, very important. Just one aspect of that is accelerating the manufacture in the United States of these very important semiconductor chips. We really don't do that at the levels we should in this country. And it means we're at the mercy of others around the world. We've seen what that means in terms of supply chains, new cars, et cetera, which have driven up prices and contributed significantly to inflation. So getting that passed and to the president so he can begin to take advantage of what that offers is going to be really, really important. Those are some of the highlights from Washington. If you watch the State of the Union, you probably got a pretty good sense of those issues. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Courtney, and happy to.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Congressman, for that comprehensive overview. I wanted to mention to you that we have several young pages on the line today, which is usually different. They usually don't join us, as well as our interns. If there's anything specifically you wanted to say to the young people today.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your participation. My message to young people is a pretty consistent one. I think we face two existential challenges which relate to climate right now. One is our political climate, which I think is overheating right now, and that leads to violent weather in the political space, if you want to think of it that way. And the best way we can address that is to invest in our democracy and make sure we take nothing for granted. I think young people are going to be on the front line in that fight because they're creative, they're committed, they understand implicitly why protecting their vote and their voice is so incredibly important. They also have a pretty good gut sense of, when they're being hoodwinked by the system. And it's not just about voting for the people you care about, it's making sure that when those folks get to Annapolis or City Hall or to Washington, that they don't get captured by special interests and big money. And I think young people are very focused on that. Look at what they've done in the arena of gun violence. But the other existential crisis we face, which dwarfs all others, obviously, is physical and natural climate change. And there's no question when you look at leadership around the world and in this country, young people are the ones who are raising the clarion call there. And they're shining a bright light on it. They're bringing accountability to every other generation that's in the mix. And they're doing it with a passion that is of great consequence. So I want to thank those on the call for that commitment. We always say that our young people are the leaders of tomorrow. I think increasingly we perceive that they're the leaders of today, particularly on issues that matter most in our community. So congratulations on your participation in this.
Great, thank you so much. And Congressman, you have time for a couple questions?
Sure.
Members, do you have any questions for our esteemed congressman? Don't be shy. Raise your hand. Checking the chat. Oh, I see. Delegate Feldmark, please go ahead. You need to unmute.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Congressman, for being with us this morning. And this is maybe more comment than question, but I just really want to thank you for your dedication to voting rights and protecting election integrity. It is so critical, so fundamental to our democracy. And I think we share your disappointment that it is more of an uphill battle than it should be, and really appreciate your your persistence and dedication to keeping that fight up. And I guess, if there's anything else you can speak to on sort of where you see things going at this point, that would be great.
Well, thank you very much, Delegate Feldmark. I also want to thank you. I know you're pushing to expand some of the authorities around public financing in Annapolis in order to give local jurisdictions even broader opportunity to put those kind of systems in place. That's where I started my journey on democracy reform, was with the issue of money in politics and how we can democratize the way candidates raise those dollars and make sure that insiders don't have the upper hand when it comes to influencing those who serve in public office. And so Maryland, I think certainly Howard County has been a leader in that space. Maryland can continue to be a leader in that space. And increasingly across the country, people are gravitating towards at least having the option of a different way of raising money for political campaigns. I think there's always this dialectic between policy and politics, and you assemble the kind of political will to push forward change, and then you try to convert that into policy action in Washington. There's definitely an appetite, I think, out there to strengthen our democracy. That's not going away. There's a sense of we want to try to address this corruption in terms of the influence money has, particularly in Washington. We assembled that and channeled it into the Freedom to Vote Act. And we passed 7 different versions of the democracy reform in the House. We got a bill in the Senate that every Democrat supported, including, by the way, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. What we couldn't do was get 51 votes for a change to the rules that would have allowed the bill to come to the floor for a simple up or down vote. We fell too short of that. But the fact that we even got to that point, many senators would tell you, amazed them, because even 6 weeks prior to that vote, there was no sense that we would have a debate happening on the Senate floor and get that close to changing the rules around the filibuster. So we weren't able to fully convert the political appetite and the public appetite for that kind of change into a policy win. When that happens, what you do is you repurpose, you redirect, you rechannel, and you re-energize back into the political space and just raise the voice of the people even higher and see if you can change the equation when it comes to good policy. So we'll go back into that dynamic, I think, in the coming months. I will say that, if you make it impossible for people to do things, that can be deflating. It can be dispiriting and defeating. If you make it really hard, it can actually be motivating. And the fact of the matter is that while it's getting harder in a lot of places around this country to vote, it's not yet impossible. So the fact that it's getting harder, I think, is going to create determination on the part of people who want to get to the ballot box. And it's sort of like they're saying, every time you try to stop me from casting my vote and lifting my voice, I'm going to work that much harder to make sure my voice is heard, that my vote is cast. And if you think of what we did during the pandemic, it was kind of a rehearsal for that, because people had to overcome a lot of obstacles, and voters got really smart on a lot of the administrivia that goes on with voting. I was amazed because I had people texting me saying, I'm tracking my ballot. I just got a text, or I checked online to see that they've processed it and now they're counting it and so forth. The amount of engagement people had just around that simple transaction of casting your vote was like nothing we've seen before in American history. I think carrying that forward into the very noble fight to make sure that everybody's ballot can be cast and counted is something that we're going to see. And I think, as I said, it will tee up the next round of policy in this area at the national level. Maryland's doing a pretty good job, but we need to bring that same perspective to bear at the national level.
Very good. Thank you. And we have two other questions, and then we'll let you get on with your day. First, Delegate Terrasa.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here, Congressman. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you for the extraordinary efforts you put in helping us get that campaign finance reform passed in Howard County, and I really appreciate those efforts and how much you've done, and as you've discussed right now, what's been going on in that area. I wanted to put something on your radar because I have a bill in this area of campaign finance reporting this session. And one of the things I found out was that the cities in Maryland don't have a requirement for campaign finance reporting. And I don't know if you were aware of that, but I just wanted to, I mean, that's a state issue. Obviously, we need to make that as a requirement, but I just wanted to put that on your radar. I was really surprised to find out that only cities Baltimore City is under our same system, but the cities in Maryland, unless they have their own requirement, do not have a campaign finance requirement at all, a reporting requirement. So throughout the state, there's elections going on where they don't even have to report where they're getting their money or where they're spending it. So I found that kind of interesting. It is in the bill that I have. I don't think that piece of it, I think that piece is going to probably get taken out this year, and maybe we'll work on it another year, but wanted to put that on your radar.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, if you look across the country, there's a real patchwork when it comes to the rules that regulate the campaign finance space. You can't go wrong if you start from the premise that transparency and accountability is number one. The public deserves to be able to know what's happening in terms of how the dollars flow into these coffers that run people's campaigns. Trying to standardize that more and take best practices that we've seen at all levels and in different places across the country and broaden that out. I think there's a lot of merit to that. So thanks for your efforts there.
And thank you.
Okay, and the last question of the day goes to Delegate Eric Ebersol.
Okay, there. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Congressman, for being here. It's always comforting to have you show up and tell us that you're going to take care of things. One of the things I listened to in the news today is that Texas had its primary last night. And I'm wondering if Congress is going to take a look at, in terms of accessibility and their new laws that I think work toward reducing that accessibility, take a look at the number of people who turned out for the vote, and if there was a significant change in the kind of people who turned out for the vote.
Absolutely. The primaries are an opportunity before we get to the general election to judge whether it's getting harder or easier for people to get to the ballot box. We've already seen impacts that have been documented, and data has been collected on this in terms of this SB1 that was passed in Texas earlier in the year, which puts a lot of roadblocks, frankly, on some of the more appropriate opportunities to cast your ballot. So I'm sure that, I know that there are a number of different organizations, candidates as well, and the different party organizations will be sifting through the results of these primaries as they're happening, including in Texas, to see what the impact might be. And I think, again, in a place like Texas, it's not going to be that you're going to get that state legislature to change rules that may have made it more difficult for people. I think what it's going to be is understanding what the impediments now are, and then providing a broad public education campaign to say to people, it's a little bit harder here, it's a lot harder there. Here's how you can overcome that and make sure that your voice is heard. That can be as simple as saying to somebody, if you're trying to get a mail-in ballot in a particular place where that's an option, make sure you send in your request at the front end of whatever the time period is, instead of on the back end. Because if you run into a problem, if there's some verification challenge or other kind of thing that you have to deal with, better that you started earlier than you waited until it's too late. So that kind of education and activating of the public, again, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, who broadly benefited in the 2020 election from some of these new opportunities to cast their ballot, whether it was early voting or was mail-in balloting and so forth. Making sure we lift those up and educate people on what it takes to cast their vote and make sure that it's counted properly is going to be fundamental. That's a broad education campaign. Public servants like ourselves, I think, have a special responsibility to share that education as part of just basic civic engagement. And I know that everybody on this call, including, I imagine, the interns that are part of this, they can share in that endeavor. So thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I invite everyone to unmute yourself for a second and give Congressman Sarbanes a hearty goodbye. And we appreciate him being here.
Thank
Good
you.
wishes and all the hard work you're doing. Go ahead, everyone.
Thank you,
All
Congressman.
right. All the best.
Bye.
Thank you, Congressman.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And now I'll turn it over to Co-Chair Clarence Lamb, Senator Clarence Lamb, for introduction.
All right, great, thank you. Wanted to move on to the next part of the agenda, which is kind of the introduction and recognition of our interns, both for the delegation and our members. As many of you know, it's incredibly busy down here, and the General Assembly would not be able to function without our pages and interns who've been integral to all of our legislative work on the floor, as well as in our committees and our offices. So wanted to just offer an acknowledgement of our pages and our interns who put in so much work into making the legislative session happen. So we have a list of pages here. I see most folks are here. I'm not sure if everyone is actually here, but we will ask that you please pipe up and introduce yourself, as well as the school that you're at, and what grade or what level of training or experience that you're at right now. So our list of pages, this is through the official General Assembly page program. We'll start with Lucia Denmead, and also what district you're from. So what district, what school, and what grade?
Hi, I'm from District 12 and I'm a senior at Howard High School.
All right, great. And next I see Joshua Hirschfeld.
Yes, hello, good morning. Currently changing classes right now, but my name is Joshua Hirschfeld from Reservoir High School, District 9A, and I'm a senior.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I know I could see some people were out in their classroom, their hallways. So, you know, it's a busy time of day right now. Next on our list, we have Frederick Jorgensen. I don't see him here, but Frederick, if you're here.
I'm here.
Oh, there
sorry,
you are,
I put in
Terri.
Teddy, which is like my official nickname.
right.
My middle name is Theodore, and I'm used to going by Teddy. But so I'm from District 9B, which is actually Delegate Watson's district, and I'm at Centennial High School right now. And I've had a great time with the student page program. I'm a senior.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us this morning.
No problem.
Next on our list, we have Sophia Monsalvo. Sophia, are you here? She may not have been able to join us this morning. Next, I see Hannah Quigley, and I think you are here.
Yes, good morning. I am a senior at Glenelg Country School, and I'm from District 14.
Great. Well, nice to meet you, Hannah. Thanks for joining. Next on our list of pages is Ria Seth.
Hi, my name is Ria. I am a senior at Rural Hill High School, and I'm from District 13.
All right. And last on our list of pages is Simran Kalia.
Hi, I'm Simran. I'm a senior at Oakland Mills High School in District 13.
Great. Well, welcome and thanks for joining us. And then I think we also have individual members who have interns who have joined us too, just for a quick recognition and acknowledgement of all of their work. I think what we're going to do, because we don't have a comprehensive list of members interns, we'll go around and have each member, if they choose, to introduce any interns that they may have or that may be on the line. I think from my office, and I'll go ahead and start, I see Phil Bartolini. Go ahead, Phil.
How's it going? Thanks, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm Phil Bartolini, legislative intern with Senator Lamb, and I am from the Maryland School of Social Work.
Great. Thanks, Phil. I don't see anyone else from my office, but we can go around and have folks introduce theirs. I think Chair Watson also has an intern.
Yes, we have two this year, and one is Leah Liu. She's a junior at Marriott Ridge High School, and she's in class right now, so not able to be with us. And we also have Raul Sanchez, who goes by Nate. If Nate is here, can you just introduce yourself?
Good morning. Hi, I'm Nathan Sanchez. I go to Howard Community College, and I mentor for Delegate Watson.
Thank you, Nate.
Great. I think next we will go to, I think Delegate Terrasa also has some interns. Delegate Terrasa, are you?
Yeah, I think I only
Yeah.
have one here with me today, and that's Hunter Craig, and I turn it over to him to introduce himself.
Hi, thanks, Delegate. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hunter Craig. I am a sophomore at Howard Community College and legislative intern for Delegate Terrasa, and I am also a proud constituent of District 13.
Great, thank you. Nice to meet you. Next, I think we have some interns of Delegate Hill's office. Do you want to go ahead and recognize yours?
Sure, thank you. I have two interns, Aubrey Zepp, I think may be on the line, and Nick Rimpler, who couldn't be here. And I did also want to just mention my legacy leader, Barbara Albert, because she, also been really essential to the team. So Aubrey, are you on the line? Yeah, it looks like that.
Okay. Any other members of the delegation that like to introduce their interns that are on? Delegate Feldmar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a fabulous team of interns helping us this session, and one of them is with us this morning. So Hope, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name's Hope Edelman, and I'm a senior at UMBC, and I'm a public health major and poli-sci minor.
Okay, great. Any other members that would like to introduce their interns? Okay, I neglected to name a few of mine that are not on the Zoom, but we also in my office have Maeve McGinley and Zach Starr, Adeline Wu, Kat Linder, and Riaz Ron. So thank you all for attending this morning. We hope you've had a great experience. We know you will continue to do so through the rest of the legislative session. Hope you can continue to serve our offices in the legislature as well. It's not only a great experience and great work, but you never know. A lot of interns and pages end up here in the General Assembly, and you may be in one of these seats in the future. So thank you.
Senator Lamb, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Senator Hester.
Thank you very much. I don't believe we got the memo to have our interns join, but our office literally runs on interns. We have, I think, 8 interns currently working with us. They're from Glenelg, Centennial, Howard, Howard County Community College, several from UMD and one from Georgetown. And I just wanted to welcome all the pages. We've loved seeing some of you in the Senate in person this year when you had the opportunity. And if any pages, are interested in an internship, please contact my office. Thanks so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Senator Hester. I will advance the agenda, and I think next on the agenda we have Boyd, who is the new president of the Columbia Association in Howard County. We're really pleased to have her join this morning to provide a briefing to the delegation. And I'm not sure if this is the first time you've had the opportunity to brief delegation or not. I know that you're coming in new, but have made a lot of inroads in the community already, even just in the short time that you've been here. But if this is the first time, we certainly welcome you to delegation and appreciate the update that you may bring from the Columbia Association.
Thank you, Senator Lamb. It is indeed my first official time with the delegation as a whole, but I have met many of you individually. Appreciate your time this morning. I am in this role 10 months this week, so not quite a year, and really wanted to make this connection very much to start building relationships before we have any kind of ask. We do not have an ask. I'm not here to request anything specific, but really wanted to kind of give an update on what Columbia Association is up to, our priorities, and then certainly happy to take any questions if the delegation has any. I also want to take an opportunity that in my tenure, I had the opportunity to hire a new general counsel for Columbia Association. So I do want to take a moment to introduce Michael Wes Annington, who is also on the call this morning. He has been a great addition to the team, about 3 months in, but has been working very diligently as the session started with Paul Taberzi, who certainly all of you know that works with us. So I did want to take a moment to just highlight that Columbia Association, while many people know us, certainly in Howard County, have been a cornerstone of the community for many, many years. We are focused on preserving what we have been doing for decades. And we're also really, like many other organizations, in the midst of making a pivot and making some changes to understand what is the service, what is the relevance, and what is really the continued legacy of CA in Columbia. So very quickly, stewardship continues to be a priority for us. So financially, we, as everyone here knows, did not receive federal funding, and really some hard decisions were made, but we have weathered the pandemic and continue to have constraints. But this fiscal year, we are performing above budget, and we're doing very well from a financial security standpoint. We continue to be an environmental steward for Columbia, both in terms of our ongoing work with staff in-house, as well as moving projects that do have some alternate streams of funding. And then lastly, continuing to be a steward in the community and really trying to be a better connector and address individual community issues. Wellness obviously is a big theme for us, and I think some people think that means only in our fitness clubs. And while certainly our tennis center and our sports park also provide that, all of our assets, which certainly shined during the pandemic, 3,600 acres, 100 miles of pathways, 3 lakes, really are another component of that community wellness for us, as well as building connection. And then lastly, and hopefully everyone here, certainly I've met some of you at events, have sensed that CA is very intentionally and purposefully engaging in Columbia, in some cases new ways, in other cases I think rebuilding relationships, but really on a focus for inclusion across Columbia as a community, and the service that we provide to everyone in Columbia, whether you're officially a member, whether you're a lien payer as an owner or a lien payer indirectly as a renter. We really want to make sure that we're engaging with everyone across Columbia. So really wanted to just briefly mention those things, make this initial connection, really appreciate the time, and happy to take any questions.
Sorry, I was speaking with the mute button on. We do have some questions. Thank you for being here. And the first question is from Delegate Feldmark, followed by Delegate Hill.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here. You know, I do want to publicly acknowledge and appreciate your efforts and your short tenure so far in this role. We've definitely seen you out and about in the community. You know, your comments about focusing on outreach and engagement that has certainly been noticed and appreciated. So thank you for that. And I think that this conversation is part of that. So thank you for being here. My one question, or I guess really a request, is as we think about CA's relationship with the legislature and with the Howard County delegation particularly, when we, given the committee structure of the General Assembly, most of the legislation that CA is involved in or takes a position on or testifies on typically is in ENT. This year we happen to have a bill dealing with CA in Ways and Means because it deals with the elections. But I do think it would be helpful certainly I think it would be helpful for myself, and I'm assuming my colleagues might appreciate as well, that when there are legislative matters that CA is taking a position on, if you could please, let the delegation know and flag it for all of us so we understand how legislation is impacting CA, even if it's not a bill that's coming through the committees that each of us serve on. That would be really helpful from my perspective.
Okay, very reasonable request. We can meet that. We'd be happy to do that. And I appreciate the willingness for everyone to be engaged and have eyes on it and hear CA's position. So thank you.
Delegate Hill.
Yeah, actually, Delegate Feldmark really sort of hit on what I wanted to say. So I'll just, again, thank you for coming today and thank you for, hitting the ground running. And so let me ask this question instead, we're coming out of the recession. CA has felt it like every other industry. You've gotten some support and some funding. What's the major priority? What's the challenge that you see? And is it a challenge that you think you're going to be looking towards us at the state level to support you in any way in addressing?
So we just finished our fiscal year 23 budget process last week. So this is very fresh on my mind. I think the biggest things that we're wrestling with are staff and supply chain, like everyone else in the world at this point. I do think that the impact of the accelerated minimum wage in Howard County is just something that we are factoring in. But over my first 2 fiscal years, it'll be about a 30% change in the input cost of labor. And that's pretty significant to continue to also make the calculations for wage compression. So that's something that we're having to dedicate more and more resources to, which certainly is an engine of what makes CA who we are, is absolutely our team. So it's a critical piece for us. I would say that emergency cash reserves is also a priority. The timing of the pandemic was particularly, while I was not here, particularly challenging for CA as an organization. So the ability to demonstrate security, both for organizational viability, but also for our employees, I think is critically important. I will say that at this point, we do not have an ask. I will say that part of what seems to be being heard across the community more and more outside of inclusion is the impacts, as the congressman mentioned, on climate change and what is that doing to our environment. As an owner of, a significant amount of property that largely is in floodplains and stream impacts, we're seeing accelerated impacts and erosion and a lot of ripple effects across our community. So I think that we would foresee continuing to make those investments in the future. As a strapped organization coming out of the pandemic, that might be something we'd be pursuing from the delegation next year.
Great, thank you. Do we have any further questions from our delegation? Okay. Well, we want to thank you very much, Ms. Boyd, for being with us today and taking the time to share a little bit of what's going on with CA. And to our members, we will be meeting next week. Look for in your email for information about that. And I want a special thanks to our interns and our pages, and we'll give them a round of applause because without you, you know, the future is pretty bleak. So thank you for being involved. And with that, I'll see everyone on the floor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
great day.
much.